Nigerian's Debt Management Office says the next administration will inherit a public debt of 77 trillion naira if the 23 trillion naira loans from the Central Bank of Nigeria are securitized. The Director General of the DMO, Patient Oneha, made us known in a statement on Thursday. In recent weeks, there have been a heated debate on the sustainability of Nigeria's debt amid shrinking revenue and mounting CBN loans. Lara Afolayan has the details in this report.
It's the day after the president gave his assent to the 2023 budget. A breakdown is now being presented to the public. Recurrent non-debt spending is estimated at 8.3 trillion, and this includes 200 billion naira for the social investment program. Capital expenditure of 6.46 trillion, which is 30% of total expenditure, is 3.5% lower than that of the preceding year. Debt service at 6.31 trillion is 29% of total expenditure, which is 71% higher than 2022's figure, including interest payment of 1.2 trillion for Ways and Means, which is the federal government's borrowing from the Apex Bank.
We have been able to consistently provide support where support is needed. Of course, the consequence of that is we have had to borrow more than we would have if things were working very well. But we are convinced that reflating the economy is the right measure to take.
While the debt is growing and there's new borrowing, debt is being managed under a public debt management strategy, which is a public document. While on the other side, extremely important, revenue is receiving significant attention.
Revenue totaling 10.49 trillion is available to fund the budget. The budget has a deficit of 11.34 trillion, representing 5.03% of GDP. The deficit is to be financed majorly by loans. 22% of projected revenue is expected from oil-related sources, while 78% is from non-oil sources. The fiscal authorities say oil revenue projections for the 2023 budget are feasible. The payment of fuel subsidy is expected to end by the end of June this year.
Well, I still have Kalajaye Paul in the studio, and economist and CEO Dairy Hughes Limited, Kelvin Emmanuel, joins me now via Zoom. Good evening. Welcome to the program.
Jacinta, good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Now let's move on. Nigeria's debt profile hits an all-time high of 77 trillion naira. How worrisome is this?
Well, it calls for a state of emergency, an economic state of emergency. I am very surprised that the members of the Federal Executive Council are calm, because in 2006, when Chief Olusegun Obasanjo left office, 2006, and handed over in 2007 to late President Musa Yar'Adua, Nigeria's debt, both domestic and foreign, was 2.4 trillion. When Alhaji Omar Musa Yar'Adua, God bless his soul, left office, and Goodluck Jonathan took over in 2010, Nigeria's debt was 4.9 trillion, both domestic and foreign. When Goodluck Jonathan left office in 2015, that debt rose from 4.9 trillion to 6.19 trillion. So, Jacinta, imagine that between 2015 and 2023, that debt stock is rising from 6.19 trillion to 77 trillion naira. And what is very interesting, Jacinta, about these numbers is that 24.5 trillion naira of the deficit you have has come from CBN Ways and Means, which basically talks about like overdrafts that the central bank provides, that is stated in the sections 38 of the CBN Act as amended in 2007, that gives the CBN the privilege or power to create money that it doesn't have value for, that says you must not exceed 5% of real revenues for the previous accounting year. Now, I'll tell you what is interesting about the CBN Ways and Means. In 2021,
Okay.
Nigeria's real revenues was 3.9 trillion naira, which means that 5% was not supposed to exceed 450 million US dollars for 2022.
I'm sorry,
Yet,
Kelvin, but we're almost out of time. Let me just ask you the second, but the last question. President Muhammadu Buhari had sought approval for restructuring of 22.7 trillion naira ways and means advances by the CBN. Lawmakers have failed to approve it, insisting on conducting appropriate checks. Let me have your thought on this.
Section 38, look, when you take action, it's important to pay attention to Fiscal Responsibility Act, Appropriation Act, pay attention to CBN. The law is very clear, Jacinta. Sections 38, 3A and B states expressly that since the CBN is a guarantor and is supposed to guarantee every government bond that is issued, yes, the CBN cannot guarantee a security in which it is being owed. It is illegal for the federal government to apply for securitization of ways and means when the CBN is being owed 24.5 trillion and when that window has been violated. Let's pay attention to the law. This is not about you having a means to fund a budget and creating a window through which you have had inflation over 10 consecutive months in 2022. And you've had currency devaluation, because when you print money excessively through this window, which was what I was trying to explain to you, yes, it causes inflation in the economy and it causes currency devaluation. It reduces the purchasing power of Nigerians. This is the real problem of inflation and currency devaluation we have today in the country. So applying for securitization of that window is like transferring the burden of the monies that were approved by CBN illegally from the government to the people.
Kelvin, I'm so sorry we are out of time, but I really appreciate some of your contribution to this topic. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right.